it took me a little while. Had to struggle with it a bit, but there it is. There's the culprit. So let's just look around on it. See, it's pretty dirty in there. Not too bad on this side. I want to get right into the meat of the matter here. Oh, and I wanted to show you this too, in case you're working on this particular machine. Maybe other ones are this way, but this first one I've seen. But basically what you can do to get that carburetor off easier without damaging either one of your rubber pieces here is you push this up inside the air box a little bit, and that gives you the clearance to pull it off the back, and then you can just pop the carburetor off the front and pull it out the top. I struggled with that a little bit because I didn't know how to get that off, but next time I will know. And I'm going to go throw this in the parts washer because it's just a little bit dirty in there, and the outside's a little dirty. You guys know how I am. I like to clean stuff up. If you've been watching my videos, that's part of my thing. I love to make sure stuff's good and clean when it goes back together. So let's pop this bowl off of here. Pay attention to where that goes right there. I'll know where it goes. It goes directly across from that. So just pay attention to that when you're doing that stuff. I see there's another little screw right down here that I was unaware of. Not sure what that does, but any of these screws that you take out like this, you want to count the turns. What you can do is run them in and count as you're going in, and then when it bottoms out, but don't push it in hard, just seat it. You just want to touch the bottom. You don't want to run it in hard. And seat it and then count the turns, and you should be able to get real close to where you were. Okay, we'll just set that aside. Probably flop off of there. That, I believe, is your idle adjustment on this particular carburetor. And here we go. This is what I've been wanting to see. I'm going to turn it this way a little in case any fuel is still left in there. Okay. And there's the float. Okay, inside of the bowl, a little dirty, but not the worst I've ever seen. That three-wheeler I worked on was a lot dirtier than that. So, for now, I'm just going to set that aside over here. And we'll squirt a little carb cleaner down in the hole, down in the bowl. Just kind of let that set aside for a moment, and hopefully the magic will start working. Okay, but yeah, the inside of this thing looks fairly clean. Let me test my theory. Okay, here's the float needle. It's stuck, looks like to me. Okay, glad to see that. It looks like you take this screw right here off. Well, maybe. Okay. Okay, yeah, I see. That may be all I have to do is just loosen it. No, you gotta take it out. I don't know how well you'll be able to see that, but basically the way this works is the float has a little tab on it that reaches down and grabs a little piece of wire or a little spring looking thing, and it slips underneath that. So we're going to pull the float out of the way. Just leave the pin in there because it doesn't need to come out. Here in a minute, I'm going to shake the float and see if there's any, and if I hear any sounds of liquid. Sometimes these can fill up with liquid. That can be your problem. But I think this is what we got going on here. I think the float needle, well, it came right out. So since that came right out, we're going to also look in here at the, we're going to blow through this and make sure there's no obstructions in any of these holes, like up above that in the seat, to make sure the seat is not blocked off. So I'm going to set that needle aside for now. And I can see this is probably the dirtiest area. So all of these are going to have to be cleaned out, and I'm going to do them one at a time because even though they look like different sizes, I don't want to take any chances on that. So I'm going to take those out. Start with the small one here. Okay. That's what we're looking at here. I'm going to aim this up toward the light so I can see if I can see any light through it. This one is partially clogged, so we will be getting the guitar string out for that one. I'm not going to, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to, because these I can see these are different size. I know I'm kind of contradicting myself here, but I can clearly see that this one and this one at least are different size. Now these two here might be the same, so I don't want to intermix those, but these two here I believe I can take out, and I'm going to soak it right here in this little bowl. I don't know if you're seeing what I'm seeing there, but I'm going to soak it in there for a little while. Take this next one out, and then I'm going to run in and grab that guitar string and start poking holes through these things. Start, clearing them out. Okay, now I can see light through that one, but it's very faint and very light. So I'm going to have to... Now, you're not wanting to actually widen these out. What you're trying to do is just clear them out if there's any gunk in there. So drop this down in the stuff here in the carb cleaner. And since we're going to let this set for a few moments here, I can hear that one's flowing. I'm still going to take it out, but this is the fuel in line. So let's see if when I squirt in there, if it comes out here. Kind of make a little pressure thing here for it, kind of seal it off. Yes, I see it bubbling up. I don't know if you guys are going to see that or not, but that's good. You got flow there. Yeah, I can't recommend this Super Tech brand. I just don't like it. There's probably other ones out there besides B12 nowadays, but I just grew up on the B12, so that's what I use. It's kind of coating everything down now. Alright guys, found the guitar strings. I didn't throw them away, so I'm going to start out with the smallest one, which is an E string, and we're going to get in here. I believe this is the idle jet right here, and the way you can tell is it has holes in the side here and a longer shaft sticking down in there. So we're going to try to get this little string to go through there, and if this one goes through easily, then we'll work our way up after we kind of poke around. We're not trying, like I said, we're not really trying to widen this hole. We're just trying to get any grime out of there. We don't want to really machine it. Okay, so that went through easily. And these are just regular acoustic guitar strings, so if you needed smaller, thinner ones, probably electrics would be even better than that. Okay, yeah, this one feels a little tighter. There we go. And as we go, I'm going to get it down here in some carb cleaner once in a while. And just kind of work it back and forth. I'm just using this like a cleaner. And here in just a second, I'm kind of actually pushing down on it and putting tension on the wire, and I'm pushing down and spinning it around. Okay, so now I'm going to pull that out, and I'm going to look down the hole again. I've actually clogged it up again, and the way I did that was when I went back through, it pushed the stuff right back down in the hole. So we're going to just keep going back and forth until we feel like it's cleaned out. And then we're going to hit it with some air, compressed air. You need that. even a small little tiny air compressor, just enough to where you can blow things out. Although it looks like I've actually made it worse, I know I'm making it better because obviously the thing's going through there. So I'm going to try to move up to a G-string. I didn't expect a G-string would go through there. I can hear the funny jokes already coming in the comments. You know, everybody's a perv these days, I guess. It's a society we live in. I don't think that's going to fit through there. And that's fine. You know, I think funny perv things like that sometimes too, but it's just, I don't know, it gets overdone. It's just like, you know, that's what she said stuff over and over and over again. It just makes you feel like you're hanging out with Beavis and Butthead when you're around mentality like that. So okay, yeah, I can see it's made it a lot better. I can't really show you that because it's not going to pick up on the camera. But next up, hopefully you can see these little holes in the side here. I'm going to clean all those out, although they look clean. And they are. I just like to, if there's any corrosion on here, just go ahead and knock that off right quick. Not over the top of your carburetor. All right, got it all cleaned up. I blew through it, and I could tell a lot more airflow was coming through there. So we're making progress on this thing. I can just tell that every little port is a little bit clogged. So I think this is going to get it. Okay, this is that screw. I'm not sure if this is airflow, air fuel mixture, or idle air fuel mixture. But I'm going to do what I was talking about. It starts out there. There's a half turn. There's a full turn. There's a full turn and a half. There's 2 turns. Two and a half is what I'm going to call that. Okay. 2.5. Most of them are that way. They're 2 to 2.5 out from seat. Okay. I may have to. Okay. And on this, it looks pretty clean. I'm just inspecting it. You do not want to hit this with the wire brush because you can actually remove too much material pretty quickly on brass. So don't do that. Can I see light? Yes, that hole is nice and open in there. Usually, I don't think I've ever seen one of these clogged up, but I always check them anyways because it's just that one time you don't. So I'm going to put this back where it goes. I was debating whether to even take this out because I really don't want to screw up the diaphragm. But I need to inspect it. It's wet inside of there. Now I did turn the carburetor upside down, so that's probably why. I'm going to wipe that out. And I'm going to try to gently wipe this out. I can probably pull that out of the way. Now it just seems to just sit down in there. So can I pull that up out of there? Yes. Okay, it'll only go in one way. But I'm going to make sure and keep it in this orientation. Now what I'm going to do, you're not going to be able to see this. It's going to be off camera. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to hold a light back behind this. And I'm going to just kind of look around here and see if I see any rips or tears in the diaphragm. And so far I don't. It looks pretty good. Okay, stick that back in. Just kind of gently wipe the needle off with your finger there. Don't bend it or scratch it. They're that sensitive, but you want it clean, and the hole's clean down there. So we're gonna see how that slots in there. It's got a unique shape there, almost like a arrow pointing downward. This corresponds with it. And actually, one other thing I kind of like to do on these slides, because there's metal to metal contact, is I put just a couple of drops of 3-in-1 around here, so that it's a little bit lubricated. Now I know the fuel is probably just gonna knock that right off of there once it gets going, but makes me feel better. What can I say? And it certainly won't hurt anything to have a little bit of oil in the fuel. In fact, some people I know, one of the smartest guys I know, he told me that basically what he likes to do whenever, because I was telling him, I was complaining one time about having a bunch of extra gasoline for my boat, and some 2-stroke gas, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, man, I just don't use that much, you know, in chainsaw and a weed eater. At that time, I wasn't doing much chainsawing or weed eating. You know, it was summertime or the wintertime or something. I don't remember what the deal was, but the guy was like, well, what I do is, you know, fill your tank up like 3/4 of the way, your car tank, gas tank, and then just pour some in there, you know, like a gallon. That won't hurt on, you know, top of 20 gallons, you know. Now, this is what I'm worried about, is getting this seated back down in there. This is another one of those deals, you know, this little piece of rubber diaphragm here was $40 by itself. I was like, oh, no way. So, trying to reuse it, but I don't know if it's going to work out, because it's sometimes rubber with gasoline, it will stretch out, and other petroleum products, it'll stretch out on you. And when you take it out of there, it's really hard to get it back in. Probably going to have to turn the camera off here, because for one, it's boring to watch me try to fiddle with this thing, and for two, hell, it may take me 20 minutes to get this thing back together. So, okay, I finally got that top cap back on. It was not easy. What I ended up doing was I stuck a brass 5.56 round inside of there, and I pushed the slide up and was able to kind of push it up to where the thing umbrellaed down a little bit more, and then I was able to work it in around that ring, and it still wasn't easy like that. So I'm kind of wondering if my if the diaphragm inside of here is stretched out. That could be my problem. I may put all this back together and it may still run poorly. It's going to definitely run better since we've opened up these holes and stuff down here and cleaned everything out. Because this needle has rubber on the end of it, you don't want to do anything crazy with it. I usually just take my finger and just spin around on that rubber and kind of clean any grime off of there that might be built up. Also, there's another little micro button on top of these things. Just make sure that's working, because if that's not working, you'll have other problems. So, okay, I think we're ready to put that back on. That thing, I was getting very little movement, and sometimes what you can do is bend these tabs a little bit, and that basically adjusts your float. So if you need more fuel, you need the needle to come out more. I may have to bend that a little bit. We're going to check it out right now. Yeah, I don't think that needle's opening up enough. I'm going to bend that tab out a little bit. I'm feeling better about that. I like it. Pretty weird design little float. Just that one screw holds it in there. Never seen that before. But yeah, now I can see the needle moving. That's what I want to see. Before it was just moving like that, and it wasn't really opening up and letting more fuel in. You know, that's what I think was going on. So we'll see. This is my first four-wheeler I've ever had. I've had three-wheelers in the past. I had an old Kawasaki 250 three-wheeler. Awesome little machine, but it smoked real bad. Like the rings were bad in it. And, it had carburetor issues too, that you always had to tune the thing and mess with the thing. So it was kind of a hassle, but it was a good work machine. Anyways, I'm going to go around here and put a little this grease in there, and I'm hoping that grease will help hold this O-ring in place, because it's going to be kind of like that that diaphragm, in that if you've ever tried to get one more day out of a pair of quitter socks, you know, those ones that you know, you pull them up to your calf, and then, you know, 30 seconds later they're back down around your ankles, and it just, you know, it just drives you nuts. This is sort of one of those deals. When fuel gets on O-rings, it can do that, make the O-ring kind of stretch out, and that's why it's best. That's why I really didn't want to do this until I had a kit, but I know I can make this work. But I'm gonna have to coat it down pretty good with some grease here to make that O-ring stick in there, to give me enough time to stick the thing back on. So let's see if that works. It's all good in theory until you have to make it happen. And you want to kind of like push it in a little bit here, a little bit there, because if you try to work it all the way around, what you'll end up with is one section over here that's real long, and it won't fit. That looks good. Got everything back inside of there. Put this down. All right. Hopefully this gets it. Boy, that would be nice. Now, I did not take this side off. Maybe I should. But the way that daggum diaphragm thing fought me, I don't know if I want to. I'm regretting taking that off. So if you have to do one of these, I recommend not taking that thing off unless you've got a new one to put back in it, because, and it's $40 just for that rubber piece. That does not come in the kit. The kit's $40 and the rubber piece by itself is $40. So not cheap. It's a good idea to start all your screws first before you tighten any of them up. That way, if one of them gets off, you won't have to fight it the rest of the time. And you might be thinking, well, that takes a little bit longer. Not really, because by the time you go back and have to undo them and redo them, it's actually a shorter amount of time. Okay, and that little guy just fits there. Okay, I think we're good. Just look over. I don't have any extra parts down here in the bin. I can push that slide up, and I can tell there's some vacuum on it, so hopefully we did okay there. But unfortunately, I can't see underneath that lip there, so I won't know until I put it on. If I put it on and it still runs exactly the same way as it did before, I'm going to automatically assume it's this diaphragm that's bad, because I know I've cleaned these ports out sufficient enough. I think that's just a paper seal in there, so we're gonna be bold here and take this off. Hopefully it's not another diaphragm underneath there. And again, I'm not an expert on these carburetors. I'm not pretending to be one or proclaiming to be one. So if you have snarky comments, just go ahead and take them somewhere else. Okay, there's a spring back behind that and another little rubber diaphragm, but it's not the same kind. So I don't have to worry about it, hopefully. I've got to pull it out of there. I really don't want to, but I have to so I can look through it in the light. And usually what I've found is if they're going to rip, it's right around this metal area. It usually seems like. So it seems okay. Maybe this is the one that's $40. I don't know. I'm going to have to get back on there. But the parts are not cheap for this thing. That's one thing that's kind of disappointing. But I guess they got to get them across that northern border, you know, and get them down here. It's probably not very easy. Going through the tundra and all that, you know, I mean. By George, I think we got it. Now that diaphragm there could be bad too. The eye can play tricks on you, although it may not look bad. Whenever it's stretched out, it might be bad. Okay, I turned it back on here, guys, so you could see this neat little trick that I learned along the way working at some of these different places I've worked at. But basically, I had an O-ring that was the right diameter, but it was too long, so it wouldn't fit in that groove. What you can do in that case is you cut it out however much you need, and you take a little bit of super glue, believe it or not, and just hold that together like that, and it will seal. Appreciate you guys hanging with me, and hopefully this answers some of your questions on what the inside of one of these carburetors looks like. You don't really have to be scared about it, but you do need to pay attention to what you're doing as you take them apart, because As I was showing you earlier, you know, these ports, the jets, some of those can be mixed up. There's certain cautions you need to take. You don't want to bend the needle valve. You don't want to scratch or scar anything. You want to clean it out, but you don't want to open it up wider than it was from the factory, because that can make it run too rich, and then you'd have another problem. So we're ready to put this back together, and in the next video we'll fire it up and see how it runs. Now that's what I'm talking about.